Hello, welcome to this episode of the Martial Truth. Have a plan. Before we get started, please remember, hit that like button. Please share, subscribe if you're not a member. All right, consider becoming a member of the channel. All right, we're over 100 members now. Trying to drop members videos at least twice a week. All right. Some people say there's too much stuff on the members channel. It's hard to cover it all. But I want to produce content for different things. I'm probably going to do maybe some YouTube live stuff in the near future. So, I'll announce that, give people plenty of notice before I'm going to do it. And we'll do some YouTube live stuff. All right. So, have a plan. So what made me decide to talk about this subject was, one, been doing a lot of the martial arts stuff, different subjects. I thought, let's get back to some self-defense related things that are just as important, okay? Especially with kind of what we see going on nationwide in the States, which is, crime's up. It's kind of up everywhere, all right? And again, when you live in a free society, you're going to have that. You're going to have those ups and downs with crime, all right? We don't live in a totalitarian state where the state can just clamp down on everyone, or like in some countries they just kill the criminals. Okay, here we're not expected to do that. So you have to realize that with that freedom comes some dangers to you personally and possibly your family. All right. So I saw a video this morning. This is what made me want to tackle this subject. Something that happened literally just yesterday in Philadelphia. Someone punched someone. They got into a fight on a subway platform. And the one person punched them, and the person lost their balance and fell onto the tracks as the train was pulling in, and sadly they were killed. Okay. And my immediate reaction was, again, I'm thinking from a self-defense standpoint and how I can use this as something to teach people something. The guy was not aware of his surroundings, wasn't aware that he's very close to the edge of the platform, fall off onto the tracks. All right. He didn't have a plan. Okay. So I use some things with myself as an example. So when I first started working as a police officer, I worked 8 at night to 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'd get home, it'd be like, I didn't work that far from where I live. So it was like 4:30 in the morning, maybe 4:45. All right. A lot of times I had to park my car 2 or 3 streets away. Right, there was no parking garage. I had an apartment in Queens, and so I'd park the car and have to walk. So at night, there's people out, but not a lot. I mean, it's 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. As I walked, I would always, be aware of my route. So as I'm walking, I'm not walking too close to the cars on the sidewalk. I'm not walking too close to the building on the sidewalk. I'm walking kind of in the middle of the sidewalk where I can glance at between parked cars. I can glance at in a doorway. As I turn the corner, I don't cut the corner close. I make sure there's some distance as I can look around as I go around the corner in case someone's there. In other words, I had a plan. Okay. And I got so used to it that I didn't even think about it, meaning I glance. And I still do it to this day. I mean, I live out here in Arizona. It's a little rural, right? But even out here, you have your occasional crime, all right? We just had a burglary here yesterday, 2 days ago. Not in my house, but, 5 miles away. It happens, okay? So, if I'm walking around my property and different things or outside, I glance. I look down. I look to the right. I look to the left. It's just important to get into these habits. And again, it's not about being paranoid. It's about having awareness to what's going on around you and thinking about, well, if this happens, what am I going to do? So let's talk about a few things. So, you're in a mall and you hear shots fired. Okay. So now if it's me, I'm going to the shots fired. I'm armed. I'm retired law enforcement. I mean, again, once you're a cop, you're always a cop, right? I'm going to but again, am I just going to take out my gun and go running through the mall in the direction of the shots fired? No. Okay. I'm going to slowly make my way there. My head's going to be on a swivel. I'm going to be getting behind cover wherever I can. You know, when I say cover, I mean something that actually maybe can prevent the bullet from coming through and hitting me. I'm going to try to get to a point where I can identify the assailant, the shooter, the active shooter, and if possible, I'm going to take him out. All right. You know, as I'm moving along, I'm probably going to be informing people to get out of the building as quickly as possible. If I'm a store employee and I'm working there, I'm probably going to lock myself in a room if I can't get out. Okay. Again, if you're an employee working in a mall, if you're an employee working in a school, if you're an employee working anywhere, you should at least at some point say to yourself, well, what if someone comes in that's intent is to do people harm at my place of business? And if they do that, what's my plan? Okay? And you want to have a plan, figure it out, you want to stick to that plan. Now, as the plan's implemented, you may have to what? You may have to change the plan, okay? So you may have to, change your directions of your plan because maybe a new wrinkle's thrown in that you didn't expect, and now you're like, okay, well, I'm going to have to do something else. So you may have to think on your feet, all right, and make adjustments to your plan, all right? In New York, I would ask my teenagers who were in high school, in the class, I'd say, what does the school tell you to do in the event of an active shooter? And they'd say to me, well, they're told that the teacher locks the doors and then we get under our desks. Okay. This is why they're educators and not law enforcement people, not self-defense people. Okay. They come up with fantasy plans, not reality plans. Okay. So then my question to the teenagers is, well, what if your classroom's the first one he walks into? And I get looks like, so what are you going to do? And the kid looks at me. He's like, I'm not sure. Well, maybe you better come up with a plan, right? And another kid said, well, I try to get out of the classroom. Okay, well, there's a guy with a gun blocking the door. If that's the only door, how are you getting out? You got to go through him. Plus, what if he starts shooting right away? Okay. Now, if you say, well, I'm just going to curl into a ball under my desk, well, that's okay. He's just going to go from desk to desk, pop, 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 killing you all. Okay? I'm not going out like that. So then I would push them further, and then someone would say, well, maybe I'd throw something at him. I say, okay. Now we're thinking. What are you going to throw at him? He's, well, whatever I have on my desk. I said, all right. Are your chairs attached to the desk? And some of the kids, they were. Okay, that's a problem, right? Can't pick up the desk and the chair. Probably not strong enough to do it, right? But then when someone would say, no, our chairs are separate from the desk. I said, okay, you pick up your chair, you throw it at him. Now you throw it at him, what's your next move? And then they'd be thinking again, well, maybe I try to get out. I said, okay, well, again, depending on, maybe that's possible, but you may have to consider the fact that you're going to have to throw the chair at him and you're going to have to charge him and you're going to have to engage in the fight of your life. You're going to have to gain control of the firearm, whether it's a rifle or a handgun. You're going to have to hold on to it for dear life, make sure the barrel's not pointing in your direction, and you're going to have to somehow eliminate that threat. And, they'd look at me and they'd think about it, and I'd say, again, the school thinks they have your best interests in heart. And maybe those scenarios will work. Maybe you lock the door, okay? Is there glass in the door? And they said, well, yeah, there's a glass window. I said, okay, so now the guy breaks the glass window and reaches in and unlocks the door. So as you see him break the window, are you getting ready next to that door so as he immediately opens it, you can grab that gun? And you can now engage in the fight of your life, at least giving yourself a chance to survive, right? Maybe getting a few other people. Come on, get behind me, get ready. As soon as he opens the door, I'm gonna grab the gun. We gotta all go after him. We gotta take him out. He's gonna kill us. Now it's either we fight or we die. All right? And again, formulating that plan in your head. I remember my son was in high school, and there was some stuff going around on social media that there was going to be a shooting in the lunchroom. And my son never told me, right? But what he did was, him and his friends, for their lunch period, they went to the library. Simple thing. So I said, well, why'd you do that? He says, well, if the guy's announcing he's going to do a shooting in the lunchroom, why go to the lunchroom that day? So, simple plan. Thank God nothing happened. Just the typical nonsense, moronic stuff that's on social media all the time. All right. But again, I said to my son, I said, well, that's good. That was good. You had a plan at least. Right. Again, you have to have a plan kind of for many different things. You're walking into the parking lot, you're carrying your groceries, and now two guys come up and decide to rob you. Well, what's your plan? Well, my plan is I'm probably going to throw a bag of groceries in their face, at least one guy's face, go after the other guy. By the other time the other guy realizes what's happened, his friend's already finished, and now I'm on to him. Okay? So again, having a plan means a bunch of different things. You have to be aware of what area you're in. Am I on a subway platform? Am I one of these people that likes to lean over and look to see if the train's coming? Okay, well, before you've done that, have you glanced around? Has there some guy with his eyes spinning like this, right? And he's talking to himself, right? And he's saying, oh, today's the day I'm going to push someone on the tracks. And your head is just worried about the train pulling in, and you have no plan, and you're just oblivious. Okay, not a good idea. So if I'm in the subway and I'm riding the subway, wherever it is, whether it's Tokyo, New York, okay, the Tube in London, I'm more aware. I'm out in the public. I'm in the subway. I'm my wits are about me. I'm looking. My head's not buried in my phone, right? I'm looking around, all right? I remember there was a guy on a bus. I saw a YouTube video of this where he has headphones in. He's looking at his phone. And some guy pulls out a gun on the bus. And he starts threatening people. And what he does is he puts the gun right here. And the guy just reacts and just snatches the gun right out of the criminal's hand. And initially, he probably didn't realize it was a gun. He just saw something coming at his face. He's so engrossed in whatever he's watching on his phone screen that he just snatched the gun. And he did it without thinking. The criminal had no time to react. So keep that in mind when you do gun techniques, okay? All right. Your action is faster than his reaction, all right, if you do the techniques right. We'll talk about that in a future podcast. So he didn't have a plan, okay? But now that he had the gun, okay, now the guy wants his gun back. And now he had a plan. His plan was, I'm going to survive. And he began fighting the guy, and he came out on top, okay? So, again, sometimes you may have to formulate a plan on the spot, all right? We go back to 9/11, and the one flight, they decided they were not going to go down without a fight. And they got together, they formulated a plan. Sadly, the plane crashed and the people died anyway. But they formulated a plan and at least made the attempt. I know now, if someone stands up on a plane and says, we're taking over the plane, I hope people aren't just going to sit there. Because you see what they do. They'll just fly the plane into a building and you're dead. Well, I'm not going out that way. There's no way. Right? So, again, have a plan. Okay? If you're the subject of harassment, if someone's threatening you, figure out a plan. All right? My career in law enforcement, at one point, I received death threats from a criminal I had dealings with. Actually called my home. My wife answered the phone. Obviously, full-blown panic. My wife calls my command. They run in. I just got to work. They run in. They say, Calandra, get home. Your wife's on the phone. Someone called the house. They're threatening her, blah, blah, blah. I jump in the car. I drive home the fastest I've ever gotten home. All right. I beat the precinct there, the local precinct, even though they'd been informed. I beat them there. I get out of the house. I was pretty sure there was no one near my house. I'm pretty sure the criminal who was calling, he's calling to get a rise, right? But again, I had a plan. And I did a perimeter search of my whole building, my whole area, looked between all the cars, right? Called my wife, let her know I'm at the door, right? She let me in. I come up. She's a mess, basket case, right? And now this becomes a big thing. So I had to formulate a plan. I had to go on the assumption that this criminal at some point was going to try to harm me or my family member. So, I was working the overnights, midnight to 8 in the morning. So the next day I went out, I bought my wife a shotgun. Okay, took her to a range, showed her how to operate it. Okay, now she's got a shotgun. Now when I'm at work, shotgun's next to her. She hears anything, she can defend herself, and she would defend herself. Okay, so now I have a plan for my wife. Now I go into work, and I'm told I can't go out on patrol. And I'm like, no, that's not good. I'll go out on patrol. I'll just go out by myself. And the duty captain says, are you nuts, Calandra? You are not going out on patrol. This guy's threatening to kill you. There's no way we're having it. I says, yeah, but if I go out on patrol and he comes at me, I'll be able to deal with him, and we don't have to worry about anybody else getting hurt. And he looks at me like I'm crazy and goes, you're grounded. You are not leaving this command. You're working inside until further notice. Okay. So I had to formulate a plan. So I knew who the guy was. I knew his name. I knew where he hung out. But he was a Manhattan guy. I had just gotten back to Brooklyn. So I decided to go to the station where I knew he hung out with in Manhattan. And I get there. And a couple of the criminals that are hanging around see me, and they go, are you back? We heard you left. And I says, no, I'm working in Brooklyn now. Is so-and-so around? And they said, oh, he was here before. And then the subway cleaner who worked for the MTA turned to me and goes, yeah, he was here before. I said, all right, do me a favor. When you see him, tell him I was here looking for him. And if he calls one of my commands and makes threats or calls my house again, when I come back here, he's really not going to like what happens to him. I was clearly threatening him. I didn't care. You threatened my family? Okay, I formulated a plan. And now I'd had a run-in with him, so he knew what to expect from me. So needless to say, the threats stopped. Okay? But to give you an idea of how seriously the department took him, a sergeant from the 105th Precinct was at my door every morning waiting for my wife to come out to go to work. They checked my wife's car for explosives, using a mirror and looking. They made sure everything was good. They walked her to the car. She got in the car. She went, and she got on the highway and went to work. This went on for quite a while, and eventually things settled down, and things got back to normal. But I immediately formulated a plan on how to deal with this situation. Okay, it's important. You have to have a plan. Again, you have a plan hoping that you never have to utilize the plan. All right. It's better to be prepared than be caught completely unprepared. Being caught completely unprepared can result in really bad things happening to you or a family member that you don't want. All right. I tried to raise my children where they had plans. One time a person had told a couple of my son's friends that the next time he saw him in town, he was a teenager. My son didn't even know him. Didn't know who he was. Said the next time he saw him in town, he was going to sneak up behind him and slit his throat. Now, it wasn't like he was saying he was going to fight him or beat him up or call him out. He's going to sneak up behind him and slit his throat. That's a bit of a strange kind of threat from a teenager. So my son went to one teacher and said, hey, I just found out from my friends that this particular kid, who I don't even know in the high school, said the next time he catches me unawares, he's going to sneak up behind me and slit my throat. I'm just letting you know in case I have to defend myself, to protect myself from this kid. All my children trained in martial arts. They're all highly competent, very skilled. Okay? So the teacher looks at him like this, and right away she runs to the principal. And the principal calls me and says, well, Mitch can be gregarious sometimes. Maybe he said something to the kid. And I literally said to the principal, do you know what the word gregarious means? It's not a negative. It just means very outgoing. Very, and Mitchell was. My son is and still is to this day. So I basically told the principal, listen, I'm not relying on you to protect my son. I'm just letting you know that if this kid makes any overt threat to my son will deal with him. And when he deals with him, don't call me and tell me he's suspended, because then I'll be calling a lawyer. And, then I saw the principal, a day later, and, she said to me, you're right, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, needless to say, what happened with that kid was he transferred out to another school. And eventually that kid grew older and eventually served time in jail. Okay, but my son was prepared. He had a plan. He went to that teacher. He made it clear why he was doing that, to alert them that I may have to protect myself, right? Okay, and if I do, all right. So again, the idea of having a plan, sometimes say, well, that's a little paranoid. You're crazy. That's never going to happen to me. I love the people say that it's never going to happen to me. Okay. Boy, that's pretty good that it's never going to happen to you. Because I'm sure every single person that was ever the victim of a crime in history woke up that day, and as they were in the shower, they said, boy, I think today someone's going to shoot me. Okay. You know what? I think today someone's going to drag me down an alley and rape me. No. Okay. Right? No. That's not how it works. How it works is you're standing at the counter in the store paying for the pack of gum you bought. And the guy walks in and draws the gun. And now you're in the middle of an armed robbery. Okay. Maybe the guy just takes the money and walks out. Maybe as he's robbing the store clerk, he's saying, give me the money, I'm going to kill you all. Give me the money, I'm going to kill you all. Okay, well, now is he serious? How do you know if he's serious? You don't know if he's serious. But I can tell you now, I'm taking him serious. You come up to me in a parking lot and say, I'm going to kill you, man. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Now I eliminate the threat. And then afterwards, he says, when he wakes up, he says, I'm only kidding. Well, don't kid. That's not something we kid about. All right. I numerous times throughout my career in law enforcement received threats from criminals, and a lot of times, sometimes they were told to me by another criminal who was looking to score points, One time I was covering a station during 9/11. We were 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And a criminal told me, those 3 guys you arrested last week? I said, yeah. He said, those guys are planning to take you out. He says they're looking for the opportunity when you're in a position they can take you out. He goes, listen, man, I just want to let you know I have nothing to do with this. I'm not involved in it. I says, all right, appreciate the warning. Thanks. I said, can you do me a favor? He says, yeah. I said, could you please tell those guys when you see them that I really want them to try their hardest. I want them to figure out a plan that they can take me out. I want them to be a good plan and really make me have to work to protect myself. Please tell them that I'm looking forward to them trying to take me out. The criminal looked at me like I was crazy, right? Which is a reasonable response to what I just said. But what he didn't realize was I had a plan. And that plan was a psychological plan. He was going to go back and tell those criminals. I knew he was, right? And when he told those criminals that, those criminals were going to look at him and go, that cop really said that? And he was going to go, yeah, man, I couldn't believe it either. And they're going to look at each other and they're going to think twice, right? Because I'm inviting them to try something. Why would that guy do that, right? So again, there's different types of plans. It's It's important to formulate one. If you're going to teach self-defense, you want to push this on your students that they need to have a plan for certain situations. All right? Very, very important. I couldn't recommend it more. Something you should think about talking about in your classes. And if you're not an instructor and you just train, or maybe you just like the podcast and you watch it, something you should think about for yourself. Know the layout where you work, have a general idea of the stores you walk into, the layout, know where the bathrooms are, know where different things are. Like me, if I'm going into a new building, like I'll give you a prime example. In the last couple of years, I'm getting a little older. I've had to go for different doctor visits. When I moved out here, all new doctors, I walk from my car to the doctor's office. I memorized the route. You can say it's paranoid. You can say whatever you want. It's just normal. That's normal. I go and sit in a restaurant. I don't sit with my back to the door. Like literally, I've gone out, taken my daughter or my kids, my sons and their college friends to a restaurant. I'm in for the weekend. I decide to take my daughter, a couple of her friends out. One of them sits with their, which would force me to sit with my back to the door. And my daughter says to them, "You can't sit there. My dad has to sit there." Like they know. All right. And if I'm sitting in a restaurant, yeah, I'm talking to the people I'm with. I'm engaged, but I'm also glancing around. As I walk into the restaurant, I look around. I see who's in the restaurant. If I'm walking into the Walmart, supermarket, anywhere, any store, a restaurant, if I'm walking into a Circle K or a Quick Trip or a 7-Eleven, before I walk in, I'm looking in through the door. Are they getting robbed? Okay? So again, what does it take? It takes 5 seconds. I stop at the door. I look in. I do a quick scan. Okay? No one's getting robbed. I go in, right? Again, part of that's my training in law enforcement. Part of it's my training in martial arts and self-defense. So these are some things I just want you to consider, all right? And above all else, have a plan. Please smash that like button, share the podcast, tell your friends about it, all right? Consider becoming a member. It's only $2.99 a month. I'm dropping new content all the time. All right, you get the podcast with no commercials. All right, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Have a great day.